are days when I feel so stuck in freeze that even mustering enough enthusiasm to walk the dog seems just a bit too much. Recovery from developmental trauma, childhood trauma, and narcissistic abuse is especially hard during times of uncertainty. It can feel often like there is no way through to the light. For me, the last few decades living in the United States has been really hard. The daily retriggering, especially in the last 8 to 9 years, every time I hear a particular voice or I spot a lie or I witness the media or an acquaintance dishing out alternative facts, I get dropped right back into the dysregulation and the gaslighting of that permeated my childhood and also my destructive marriage. Without spending the whole video rehashing the details of the dysfunction of my emotionally stunted childhood filled with unprocessed grief and the toxic marriage that was rife with emotional blackmail, let's just say that I know that of which I speak, and I have lived and walked that which I teach. After that fleeting 100 days of hope of the past fall, those intoxicating glimmers of the possibility that our own society might stop being a perpetual source of triggers, we are back into the thick of it, and it seems like it's thicker than it ever was before. Uncertainty and chaos and internal danger alarms are ringing with every breaking news alert. And I think the thing that pisses me off the most about all of this is that I fell for it again. I fell for the hope. I was thirsty for that hope. And it's not the first time that I've fallen in love with hope, with the hope of a brighter future. It's a pattern. It's that intoxicating feeling that someone or something is going to come along and save us, or at least that those who claim to love us will stop harming us. And that would be my trauma talking, as those in the community would know. I wanted so badly for things to be different that I glommed onto that vision of a brighter future for society in which trauma recovery could progress without daily re-traumatization from our political leaders or from those weird neighbors who fly bizarrely racist flags. And once again, that rug got ripped out from underneath my feet. And I'm definitely not a nihilist, but I find that optimism is a pretty heavy lift at the moment. So I'm going to ask you, how are you feeling? Here's the thing. Folks with CPTSD don't do well with uncertainty. After all, our young brains were literally primed to see danger in unpredictable situations. So how do we continue to get through this, whatever you want to define this as, without perpetually living in a high cortisol state of survival? How do we walk the path of recovery when it's hard to put one foot in front of the other, let alone become strong when society keeps rubbing salt in our existential developmental wounds? In the 3 decades that I've walked this path, I have learned to befriend my dysregulated nervous system and reassemble the pieces of my shattered and confused inner child, but I am a work in progress like us all. My hope in sharing this content is that your path to recovery will benefit from the lessons that I've learned each time I've stubbed my toe and scraped my knee as I've tripped over another one of life's obstacles. CPTSD recovery is a daily practice, and for me, every freaking day is a reminder that uncertainty, gaslighting, and oppression are real. But they don't have to take me out unless I let them. And I am not going to let them win, because damn it all, they've already taken enough of my good days. So I'm here today as a trauma-informed life coach because I am winning, even when some days progress gets measured in mere millimeters, even on those days when it is tough to muster enough enthusiasm to take the dog for a walk. So what now? What is the plan, people? How do we keep moving towards our CPTSD recovery in spite of the malevolence, the divisiveness, and the feelings of powerlessness? Because we all deserve to win in the face of turmoil, and to get stronger and not let the trauma be the driver of our lives anymore. The tools of trauma recovery are numerous, but the foundation of the whole shebang is resilience, the ability to both adapt and to withstand adversity and to grow in spite of it. Our trauma wounds never go away, but over time, as we travel along the path to recovery, we build the resilience to change our internal state more quickly. Each rep allows us to build our resilience muscles and rewire our brains just a little bit more so that the next time we find ourselves being triggered and dysregulated, our path back to a regulated state gets shorter and shorter. And when we've gotten in enough reps, one day we find that our wounds don't open as often or as easily. They are just there, inert, and mostly non-reactive. We discover that as we have been building on working our resilience, we've also rewired our brain connections, and that allows us to stay regulated in the face of former triggers. So how exactly do we build our resilience muscles? How do we rewire our brains? Well, there's a lot packed into those questions, so let's get into it. Of course, the precursor to all of this is to actually recognize that we are in fact about to slip into a state of dysregulation, and that in itself is such a chunky topic that we'll save it for a separate video. But the time to start building our muscles is before we actually need them. We need to find things that we can practice, reps that we can do. So in the pinned comments below, you'll find a trigger first aid kit that's a mobile PDF that you can load up on your phone, which has about a dozen techniques that you can practice as you're starting to build up the muscles. So what we want to do is get it ready before we need to use it. So just like any first aid kit, if you buy it and stick it in the glove box of your car, when you encounter somebody with a broken arm, you're going to have to read the instructions on how to deploy a splint. So what we want to do actually is open the box, check out the techniques that are in there, and practice them before we actually need to use them. And the importance of doing that is because we want to build enough what I'm going to call muscle memory, since we're talking about resilience muscles, is to build enough muscle memory that you can deploy these techniques or the couple of techniques that you choose to use almost instinctively without having to rely on the brain, which is about to spiral into dysregulation, and to not rely on the executive function of your prefrontal cortex as it's about to click offline when you become dysregulated. So pick a couple of the techniques out of the toolkit and check them out, practice them, see how they fit, try them on for size, take them for a spin around the block, and then the next day try a couple more. You may work through the techniques and pick a couple that really feel like they resonate with you and that you could deploy when you are in a public situation or in a situation where you usually become dysregulated. So for me, that would be walking in a busy airport terminal where there's just busy chaos going on all over, and there's long lineups and there's frustrated people around me. For you, it might be standing behind a particularly obnoxious Karen at the post office, or it might just be sitting down to dinner with family members who don't see life the way that you do. And so anyway, practice a few that you feel like you can deploy. Some of them are quite stealthy, so you can go ahead and practice those ones and have them ready to deploy when you need them the most, and sometimes you can get away with actually deploying them right smack in the middle of a Zoom meeting. I can tell you that from experience. So when you're ready and you really need them, when your prefrontal cortex stops communicating with the rest of your brain and you are starting to do a spin, you can pull them out, stop the spin, get back to a state of calm, and actually be regulated quite readily without ever having to look anything up. Remind yourself of the instructions. So practice, build the muscles, build them before you need them. So, and for those, I'm going to show my age of the Karate Kid era. Wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. Just practice them until they become a habit. And as you do that, you are going to actually experience something else, which we'll talk to about in a second. I'm going to change my view. For our visual learners, of which I am one, I'm going to be posting a series of short videos that demonstrates each of the techniques. So sometimes it's hard to take a written instruction of how your body should move or how your breath should work, so it's sometimes really useful to watch somebody else practice that. Also give a little explanation in each of the videos as to what parts of the brain are actually getting kicked into gear, or what parts of your nervous system are being affected by the technique, just so you can understand how the mechanics of it works, because the more we can understand the vocabulary of our trauma responses, the better it becomes, we become able to sort of wrap our arms around what's happening within us, which actually helps to speed our path towards recovery. As you're going through this, you're actually furrowing new pathways in your brain. You're making new neural connections as well. So what's going to happen over time as you're practicing those techniques and then you actually get to deploy them in states of dysregulation, you're going to find that it's quicker to recover, number one. But then secondly, that as you're building those new neural connections and your brain is responding with neuroplasticity to the changes you're making, that you are actually going to find that issues or situations that formerly triggered you don't trigger you quite as much. And then one day you'll go, wow, that used to really bug me. And you realize, I didn't react. And that's when we know we're on the right path. If you only take a single thing away from this video today, let it be the knowledge that uncertainty and chaos are going to be with us no matter what. And those are the things we cannot control, but that they don't have to take us out of the game. You can build the muscles of resilience, and you can work towards rewiring your brain to replace those old neural connections built by the traumas of your past. Please come and join us at Ralph's Tales. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss out on any of the serotonin boosting charms of my buddy Ralph, along with deep dives into trauma-informed topics that can help you leash your own potential. Don't forget to pop down to the pinned comment and get your free trigger first aid kit, and we'll see you along the path of recovery. Come. Someone's got the zoomies.